Alright guys, I'm gonna announce the winners of week 1 of my giveaway events in this video. Now there have been two events which are on weekly basis. Number one is going to be club contest, and number two is going to be the event called guess the best speciality of each team. Sorry, guess the best team for each speciality. Now both of them are on weekly basis, and we just finished week 1 of the event, so that's why I'll be announcing the winners now. Now, I will do both of the winners at the end of the video. However, at the start, what I'm actually going to do is actually going to be talking about what is going to be the best quick attack team in my opinion. Because part of the event is trying to guess that team. So rather than just go straight into the submissions, I will first like to actually talk about, what is in my opinion the best team, why have I picked that, and then when we actually go through the submissions, I can then give some reviews on why I think certain teams are good and why I said certain teams may still be lacking something. Okay, so let's just go straight into actually try to build a team together. So first of all, in order to actually build a quick attack spiky team, it's going to be very obvious. We should really be picking one quick spike setters. Now, whilst there are going to be other setters which can also synergize well with a quick spikers in this game, but a lot of time they are not able to provide as much of a buff as what a dedicated quick spiking setter is able to do. Okay, so first of all, for the setter position, we should decide between Miya and also UR version of Kageyama, because those two are basically the two UR quick spike setters. Now, because I'm trying to build the best team out there, you have to take a look at the team as a whole. Miya is very much known for trying to play in a team where you don't try to crit too much, whereas UR version Kageyama is kind of on the opposite end, which is a lot more crit focus. And if we just take a look at all of the UR and the SP characters out there, you would then realize like 70 or 80% of the characters prefer to be having a crit build. So out of the two options, it's going to be very clear for the setter position that I am actually going to pick the UR version of Kageyama. Now, that's not to say Miya is bad, it's just that Miya, in my opinion, is more better for, let's say, a free-to-play player where you don't actually have resources to build a full UR or SP teams. However, considering we're trying to build the best quick sparky team out there with no constraint on resources, etc., I am going to obviously go down a full team of UR and SP characters because they're just better. They have better raw stats, better kits, etc. Okay, and that's kind of why Kageyama UR is going to be the clear winner out of the two. Okay, so now that we decided on the setter, we have Kageyama UR. Let's go through the other positions. In the liberal front, we have either the choice of Komori or SP version of Nishinoya. Komori is good, but there's no direct synergy with Kageyama UR, whereas Nishinoya actually have a deployment bond with Kageyama UR, so he's going to be the clear winner out of two here. Okay, so those two are easy. Now let's take a look at the remaining positions. First of all, we're trying to build a quick spike speciality, and this is after position limit is removed. So that basically means we are forced to play at least 4 characters of quick attack labels. Now, what quick attack label characters are there? Basically, it's gonna be either the opposite hitter, Miya, is going to be the other setter, Miya, or there are also going to be 3 choices for mid blocker. There's going to be the UR version Chrome, there's also going to be SP version of Hinata, and also SP version Suki. Now, the SP version Kuro does not have a quick attack label, okay, so that's kind of why he's not in consideration, and it's not at this stage. I will talk about him later on, but at this stage, when we try to just at least fulfill the condition of quick spiking speciality, he's not going to be part of consideration here. Okay, so basically there are 5 positions remaining, and we need to pick at least 3 quick spikers. Now, just simply looking through all of this, you should probably already realize if I actually put in SP Hinata and also SP Suki into the team, ignore the positioning for the time being. I'm going to talk about that later on. But if I just simply put in those 2 characters, what I can do is actually fulfill Karasuno School Bond. That will give me some extra stats. On top of that, SP Hinata does have a bond with Kageyama UR, so that's a good synergy here as well. And then SP Suki does have a synergy and also deployment bond with SP Hinata. So straight up, you kind of already have your team completed, or just the core foundation of your team completed, okay? Which is going to be this 4 members of Karasuno School, okay? So that's kind of why I'm going to start off with this. And I know from a lot of people's submissions, you're also trying to build around with this as well, okay? So hopefully this part is going to be pretty self-explanatory. Okay, now let's take a look at the remaining 3 members. Once again, remember, we need at least 4 members on the team to be of quick attack. Right now, we only have 3, so out of the 3 remaining slots, we need to have at least 1 other quick attack trait characters. So once again, what are going to be the options? There is going to be UR version Kuro and then the Miya twins. Let's just go through them one by one. I'm going to start off with the UR version Kuro. Is he going to be a good choice here? Now, the thing with Kuro is that there is going to be an SP version, okay? The 2 of them does have slightly different role because the UR version Kuro is basic block and also quick attack, whereas the SP version of Kuro is actually block and receive. Now, you may be thinking, if we actually try to build a team with quick speciality, it doesn't have to stop at just 4 quick attackers, right? Because basically the way it works is that if you happen to have 4 quick spike trait characters on your team and you counter the enemy speciality, you're going to get 15% increase to of your stat. However, if you have, let's say, 5, that's going to jump to 20%. If you have 6, that's actually going to jump to 25%, etc. So simply by having 1 extra quick attack trait characters, you can actually improve your whole team by an additional 5%. Now, while that sounds very, very good on paper, the thing is, if I actually play SP version Kuro, he actually have a deployment bond with SP version Suki, which is actually able to give me a 10% increased stats to my whole team. That's even higher than the value of an additional quick spike trait character. Not to mention that additional quick spike trait character buff is only going to be effective if the enemies actually have block speciality and therefore you counter them. So just a straight comparison between the 2 in terms of the buff, it's going to be clear. SP Kuro is actually able to bring more to the table than the UR version Kuro, even though he's not of quick attack speciality. And of course, on top of that, he is also going to have a deployment bond with Suki, like I mentioned. And also on top of that, he's also have the ability of actually increasing reflex for himself, which is actually going to be very crucial if you actually want to get the most out of Hinata. Because if you, one of your member actually is able to do a critical receive, what's that going to happen is that you're going to get a 100% increase in crew rate or awareness for Hinata SP. So he not only have a deployment bond with Suki, he also synergizes very well with SP version of Hinata. So that's kind of why he's actually going to be the clear winner if we have to pick between the 2 versions of Kuro. And that's kind of why he's going to be the 1st member of the team. Okay, now that leaves 2 members remaining. One of them have to be a quick attack trait, so one of them, at least one of them, have to be the Miya twins. They can potentially even both be Miya twins, right? Both members of Miya twins. But let's just have a look at what other options out there as well. So if we actually talk about a team like this, we first of all need to know what can an extra team member actually bring to the table, right? First of all, because this is going to be a quick spiking team and Kageyama further boosts quick spikes out there, and we have already initially went down all of the quick attack characters in this game for all of the UR and SP, what we know is that there's no way for us to fill in this position with 2 members who are both capable of quick attacking. The best we can do is going to be also Miya, but then 1 other slot is going to be left remaining. We can potentially put in a power attack there, but that's not going to be the most optimal team because Kageyama is not able to offer the full amount of buff to him. So that is not going to be the best addition. We can potentially add another blocker to the team, but we already have 2 solid blockers here, and depending on the rotation, you can even get a situation when both of them are on the front row together, which I'll talk about later on in the video. So the value of additional blocker is not going to be a huge amount either. We can also potentially go down the route of an additional receiver, but once again, depending on how you actually fill in your rotation, you can potentially already have Nishinoya SP and also Hinata SP and also Kuro SP. So that's already 3 very solid receiver at the back as well. So the addition of 1 additional receiver is not too obvious as well. So actually, if we do actually have to fill in the slot with 1 other character, it's probably best to actually have a character which is able to offer some kind of buff to your team. And therefore, rather than try to fulfill an additional role to a team where your team is kind of already self-sufficient, it's potentially actually going to be better to improve the buff on your team so that your team is able to do what they're already capable of doing, but doing them better. So if we are actually going to bring an additional buffer, what buff should I actually bring to the table? Now, if we actually take a look at the way this team works right now, Kageyama Yua is going to be heavily relying on a buff that he's able to provide. You can either get that buff by the enemy landing a critical attack, or it can also be triggered by this bond with Nishinoya SP, which is basically that when Nishinoya SP use his ult, then you're gonna get one extra buff from Kageyama. So then we move the objective to Nishinoya. How can we make him basically ult more often? Nishinoya SP have this trait or this passive ability where whenever a member on your team do a critical action, he's able to reduce his ult cooldown by one net crossing. So that then basically shift our objective to the next thing, which is that how can I make sure my team do as much crit as possible. And then we move on to the other members. So we have Suki SP and also Hinata SP. Okay, remember they're the core of this Karasuno quick sparking team. Hinata SP, if you're actually able to do a critical receive, then he would actually get a 100% increase in his critical spike, better awareness to his when he's about to do a spike. And then there's a bond between Suki SP and Hinata SP, where when Hinata SP's crit, then Suki will also get a buff in his crit. Okay, so basically, if you just follow this chain of reactions down the line, what you then realize is that what's going to enable this whole team basically kick off their synergy is actually that you need to somehow get a way for a member on your team to do a critical receive. Because when a member on your team do a critical receive, what that then basically means you are able to increase Hinata's awareness, you are then able to increase Suki's awareness, you are then able to get lots of crit on your team, which then basically allow Nishinoya to reduce the cooldown for his ult. He is then therefore able to ult a lot more. When he's able to ult a lot more, Kageyama Yua is going to get a lot more buff, and then that in return would then buff the remainder of your team. Okay, so this is how the chain reaction is going to happen in this team, and it all starts off on relying on Hinata SP on someone on your team is able to do a critical receive. If you are trying to do a critical receive, what's going to be the number one stats you are trying to buff? It's going to be very obvious. It's going to be reflex stat, which is basically the critical rate for defensive actions such as receiving. So the best buffer you can bring onto a team is going to be someone who's actually capable of increasing the reflex rate. And there's going to be one winner here, which is going to be the SP version of Kemma. Okay, so SP version of Kemma is definitely going to be a solid contender here. And then the other two contenders, like I said earlier, it's going to be the Miya twins, right? So there's also Miya and also Miya. Now, if we just compare to the two options, would I rather play the Miya twins, so both of them together, or would I rather play just one of them plus SP version of Kemma? So what do they actually offer on the table? If I actually play the Miya twins together, let me just put them in just to easier for me to demonstrate. If I actually put the Miya twins together, once again, ignore the rotation. I'll talk about that later. I'll fine tune the rotation later. If I just bring the Miya twins, what's that gonna able to bring me? It's gonna bring me one additional deployment bond, which is basically an unblockable quick attack. And also you are gonna get increased stats to both Miya and also Miya. Now, in terms of unblockable quick spikes, Suki is already able to offer that. Hinata is already able to offer that. Both of them have no limit, whereas the deployment bond between Miya and Miya is a one-time thing. So purely from an additional attack point of view, this is not going to make a huge amount of difference if you actually consider the game as a whole, because I already have two other characters who can do exactly the same thing multiple times over in a match. If we talk about the stats it's able to bring, the stats is only going to benefit Miya and also Miya themselves, okay? What other stuff are they going to bring to the table? They are not really able to bring any supporting buff because Miya can only basically have some kind of buff when your team doesn't actually do a critical action. However, I just literally went through the chain reaction on this team. Once you actually have your Hinata do his receive, which is a critical, then you're going to get so many other ways to increase the crit rate on your team that the way Asumiya is able to build out the buff is pretty much going to be non-existent, I'm going to be honest. And not to mention that even if Asumiya does happen to get his buff stacks, he can only actually trigger or use up those buffs when he actually does a set. But because we already have Kageyama Yua on the team as well, the likelihood of you Asumiya and also Kageyama Yua doing the set, basically you'll be split 50-50 between the two of them, and therefore the impact of Asumiya's buff is going to be even less. What does also Miya is able to do? Also Miya is able to provide a debuff to your opponent, which is actually quite nice. It lasts for a lot of cooldowns, but that rely on your also Miya actually do a quick spot. And once again, because we already have Suki and also Hinata who can do unblockable quick spot, they are obviously going to get a priority over also Miya. So whilst also Miya is able to do that debuff, it's not really kind of the main thing you are using him for, okay? So the additional value he can bring is going to be pretty small as well. And now let's just hypothetically swap one of them, and I'm going to swap Asumir to Kenma SP instead, purely because both of them are setters. What is Kenma SP actually going to offer to the table instead? What Kenma SP is able to offer to the table instead is, first of all, he has a passive ability which is always going to be active. So unlike Asumir, which only can get that passive when your team doesn't crit, which is going to be very, very rare in this team, what Kenma SP is actually able to offer is just a flat increase to the reflex rate to your whole team, which I already mentioned is going to be very crucial. In terms of bond perspective, he's going to have a bond with Hinata SP. He's also going to have a bond with Kuro SP. Now, the bond with Kuro SP is actually going to be such that, first of all, you get one additional attack, just like how your Miya twins have an additional attack. This additional attack is not actually going to be unblockable, so you do lose a tiny bit from the firepower point of view. However, on the other end, you are actually going to get a buffing ability, because after you use that deployment bond, you are actually going to get a 10% increase to attack stat for your whole team, and that's going to be for the remainder of the match. So that's actually going to be a really good buff. And then likewise, the deployment bomb to Kenma SP and also Hinata SP is actually going to allow you to have 5 additional stack of basic Kenma's buff, and that's going to be, I think, something like 5% extra crit rate, and also you are able to debuff the enemy by 5% of their crit rate, or maybe 10%, I can't remember now. But basically some kind of buff plus also some kind of debuff, which once again is a lot more than either one of the Miya twins is able to offer. Now, even if you actually consider the fact that Miya twins, because they are both quick spiking characters, so if I play both of them, I can get an additional 5% increase in all of my stats while I counter the enemy speciality. Once again, Kenma is already able to offer that straight up without needing that condition of you actually countering the enemy speciality. So no matter how you look at it, Kenma SP is actually going to be a better synergy in this team in comparison to either of the Miya twins, and as a result, Kenma SP is actually going to be the 6th character on your team, and then the last member is either going to be also Miya or Asumiya. Both of them have their pros and cons, and it's going to be somewhat depending on rotation. So both of them I think can work, but let me just talk about what does that actually mean in terms of the team lineup and rotation. Okay, so this is basically, in my opinion, kind of the best team. Now let's talk about the actual rotation. Now remember, Osumiya can be replaced with Asumiya. There are going to be slight variations, which I'll talk about in a bit. But in terms of rotation itself, obviously you try to make sure you do as much surfing skill as possible. And that's kind of why you want to line up all of your servers in this first 3 or possibly 4 in the first 4 rotations, okay? Because the way in this game works is that it's best to 5, so the maximum number of rotation you need is going to be 4. So all of your surfing characters, or character who have some kind of skill regarding with surfing, should be in those 4 positions, okay? Now on this team, I basically have 3 characters with surfing skill. It's going to be Osama Miya or Asumiya, depending on which one of the Miya twins. It's going to be Kageyama Yua. It's also going to be Kuro SP. And that's kind of why you want to prioritize them in the first 3 rotations. And obviously the reason why you want to do them in the first 3 rather than the first 4 is that in, let's say, if you actually get lucky in the sense that you manage to win 2 points in a row, then you wouldn't even have to bother going into the 4th rotation and then having somewhere else to serve, okay? So that's kind of why in terms of the best rotation, you should be somewhere between those three characters. Now, out of the three serving characters, Kuro SP is obviously the one you want for the third rotation, purely because he is actually quite beneficial up front because he has all of the block skills, etc. Whereas the other characters, it doesn't really matter whether they're up front or at the back, it doesn't matter too much. You may be thinking Kageyama, he has a setter dump, so he is going to be slightly better up front than at the back. However, Kageyama settled them. First of all, vast majority of the time you try to prioritize attacks rather than settle them. And whilst Kageyama settled them does have an additional effect of increasing the enemy's block cooldown, remember, a lot of your attacks are actually ignoring blocks. So as a result, the enemy won't even be using his block skills too often anyway. So that basically removes the utility effect of Kageyama UR's setter dump as well. So to me, also Miya or Asu Miya doesn't really matter whether he's up front or at the back. Kageyama UR doesn't matter he's up front, at the back. Whereas Kuro SP, even though he has both receiving skills and also blocking skills, it's going to be very obvious your team lacks more blocking ability than receiving ability. So that's kind of why you want to put Kuro SP in the third position. Now, out of the two, between one of the Miya twins and also Kageyama Yua, who do you want up front and who do you want as the second position? It's going to be depending on which one of the Miya twins you want. If it's going to be also Miya, I'll argue it doesn't really matter which way around you want to put it. However, if it's actually going to be Asu Miya, then it's very important Asu Miya is going to be serving first and then going to Kageyama Yua, and that's all to do with liberal rotation. Because on this kind of team, you definitely do not want to swap out your mid blockers because both Kuro SP and also Hinata SP have receiving skills, so they have to be on the field. Kenma SP basically is able to increase your reflex for your team, which is then basically the engine, which then kick off your chain reaction on this team as well. So you don't really want to swap out Kenma SP either. So even though you do want to swap out a setter, it can't be Kenma SP, and it can't really be Hinata SP or Kuro SP. It can be Suki SP. However, if you are going to swap out Suki SP, you are actually going to get into a sticky situation in the sense that by the time Suki SP rotates to the front, and he has to rotate to the front because he's another blocker on your team, then if you actually choose the liberals swap as one of the mid blockers, then either Hinata SP or Kuro SP will be swapped out, and that's not going to be ideal. So that's kind of why you don't really want to set your mid blocker as a swap out liberal swap out either. So your liberal swap out in this kind of formation have to be the center position, but you also want Kenma not to be swapped. So Nishinoya can either replace Asumiya or Kageyama Yuma. Out of the two, obviously you want him to replace Asumiya rather than Kageyama Yua, and that's kind of why it's very important Asumiya is there in front of Kageyama Yua so that Nishinoya comes into the field first to replace the first setter, and then that basically means when both of them are together on the field, Nishinoya will always be the one replacing Asumu rather than replacing Kageyama, okay? But that's kind of why if you are going to play Asumu out of the Miya twins here, it's very important Asumu is serving number 1, Kageyama you are serving number 2. Now, if you're going to play Osama Miya, then it's less going to be of importance because you'll be swapping your opposite hitter instead, in which case it doesn't really matter whether Kageyama Yua goes first or Osama Miya goes first. It wouldn't really affect your liberal swap out too much. They will both see action as in like on top of the back line for 3 rotations, so it doesn't really matter which one happens first. So that's basically the rotation for the 3 servers. Then in terms of the other position, like I said, Kenma SP, he does not want to be swapped. And because he's a setter, if I actually play him here, when I have Asumu Miya, then what's going to happen is that Kenma SP will actually be swapped out, which is actually not a great idea. So that's kind of why Kenma SP have to be in this position. Now, if you actually, let's say, have your Miya twin as Osama Miya rather than Asuma Miya, then you could argue because I am swapping out OP, then I can have Kenma SP at the back. Yes, whilst that's fine, you can't really play Hinata SP in this position either, because Hinata SP wants to be at the back, so you definitely do not want him to be at a position where it takes 3 rotations for him to even get to the back. And then you can't really play Suki here either, because if you actually play Suki here, what that basically means is that 4 rotation later on, you would then actually end up in a situation where you wouldn't have any of the blockers to get up front, because your Crow and Suki are literally right next to each other. So that basically means by the time your Suki, so basically in this position, get rotated to here, your Crow will also be in this position, and then your front line will be end up with no one capable of blocking. So that's also going to be a bad idea. So literally by elimination, you can't have Hinata SP or Suki SP in this position. So this position, the fourth surfing position, have to belong to Kenma SP. And then out of the two at the back, the order you want to go is obviously going to be SP Hinata in the middle and Suki at the right, because that basically allows your Hinata to have one extra turn at the back row, okay? So that's basically going to be the most optimal rotation. Last thing I'm going to talk about in team building is going to be the difference between Miya and Miya. Now, as you can see, both of them will be swapped out by Nishinoya for the first 3 rotations. So that's kind of why a lot of time their role are going to be very similar. They'll just be trying to do a serve and then they be subbed up. The main difference is actually going to be what happens on the fourth rotation, and that's where it gets a bit tricky. So basically, on the fourth rotation, what's going to happen is that your Osumiya or Asumiya will be rotated to the front, and this is also going to be a position where your Kenma SP and also Kageyama SP, they are both at the back. Now, before, what you can do is you can actually spread out all of your attacks, in the sense that normally in this game you just need 3 attacks to recycle around. So you already have the quick attack from Suki SP, you have the quick attack from Hinata SP, and then normally at this one of Kenma SP or Kageyama Yua will be up front, in which case you can then do a set of dump as well. So before this rotation, it's actually very easy for you to recycle through all of your attacks. However, this rotation is going to be somewhat tricky, because both of your setters are at the back, so they can no longer do set a dump, and then depending on your cooldown of your Suki SP and also Hinata SP, there could actually be a possibility where you end up in a situation where you are not actually able to activate a skill and you just have to do a normal spike. And that's where also Miya is going to be slightly better than Miya, in the sense that he at least have an additional attack which allow you to actually recycle through. So you definitely do not have to worry about, potentially just do a normal attack rather than an ultimate attack. However, so this is basically the benefit of Miya. However, what you can also argue is that if you do actually have Miya, what's going to end up happening is that Miya does have a much stronger serve, and in fact his ultimate attack can be served twice in a row. So there's actually a good chance that you're able to win 2 points consecutively before the enemy actually break you, and then as a result, if you actually already managed to win 2 points consecutively, then the most number of rotation you need is actually only going to be 3 rotation, and then that could actually give you a chance where you finish off the match at this rotation, where you still have Kenma SP up front, allowing you to still do the set dump. Okay, obviously this is going to be relying on whether you can actually win 2 points in a row, but with Asumiya's higher serve, that is also going to be a possibility. And then the other thing you can also do is that, remember, Suki SP does have the ability of you choosing whether you want him to be more block focused or more quick attack focused, and the one which he's less proficient on will actually have a reduced cooldown. So if you actually build Suki as more block focused, what that actually means is that his quick attack is no longer going to be an ultimate attack, and therefore it's going to have a reduced cooldown, and that can potentially also allow you to recycle through the attack a bit better as well. Okay, so that's kind of what I do feel like Asumiya and also Miya, they can both be valid options in this team. It's going to be much more dependent on whether you want to take a risk so that you can actually score 2 points in a row and therefore finish off the match with just 3 rotations in, or whether you want to play it safe by using also Miya instead, so that even in the case when you have 4 rotations in, you still have an option having someone to actually do a quick spike ultimate for you without relying on normal quick attacks. Okay, so that's basically the main difference in my opinion between Asumia and also Miya. So when I am marking my submissions, I am, to be honest, I think either one of them is going to work. It's just more depend on how much of a risk you want to take with your team building. Either you go for high risk, high reward, or you go for more of a consistency with also Miya. Now is an exciting time because I'll be announcing the winners for the event. So first of all, thank you everyone for making your submissions. You guys put in a lot of great effort. I can see loads of detailed explanations, etc. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this experience, and also it made you think quite a bit in terms of like team building, how to strategize, how to kind of plan all of your serve rotations, and also your choice of characters, etc. So hopefully this was enjoyable. But sadly, I can only pick one winner out of this, and as I have already explained in my rules up front, it will be the team which is going to be closely resembling mine. I know all of the opinions are going to be subjective, and there are obviously going to be some great teams here, but I will stick to my rules and pick the one which is closest to my team. Okay, so let's just go through all of them one by one. I have already read everything, so I'm not gonna read everything together with you guys. This video is already super long. Apologize for that. I'm just simply gonna give a few review points on anything which I noticed up front. Okay, so for the first submission, you got all of the characters correct. The only thing which is lacking there is kind of the rotation. You started off with Suki in front of Kuro, which is not ideal because Kuro have that surfing ability as skill resonance 4. Furthermore, if you actually want the character to be rotated back, the one in the middle position will get one extra turn at the back, and once again, Crow is better than Suki at the back, so that's kind of why you definitely want to swap those two together. And furthermore, there's also one other major flaw with this rotation, which is that 4 rotation in, which to be honest is going to be quite happening quite often a lot of the time. You're gonna end up with a front row of Kageyama, you are Hinata SP and also Kenma SP, and then you will have no one capable of blocking up front. So for that reason, normally you do not want two blockers right next to each other if they're only going to be your only two blocker in the on the court. Okay, so you definitely want to actually space them out, and the idea is that no matter which rotation you are in, you should always have a blocker up front. Okay, so for the second submission, this one is just because of the usage of Miya twins. Like I said, Kenma SP will provide more value than actual Miya here. So sadly, that's not going to win it. So submission, this is actually very close to my answer. You start off with actual Miya up front in surfing position. Like I said, you can definitely play this instead of also Miya. It just depends on how much of a risk you want to take and how much you value his surfing capability, rather than another spiking option on the forced rotation. So I would accept this as an answer. And then your rotation was, it's almost perfect as well, but with one thing that I will swap once again is to do with the position of Kuro SP and Suki SP. Kuro have that surfing ability, so he should be up front. And furthermore, the one in this position, after two rotation in, he will still enjoy at the back for another 2 rotation. Whereas if you have Kuro in this position, he will only be at the back for 1 rotation. And once again, Kuro is better at the back than Suki. So I will just swap the position of those two around. But other than that, everything else is very good. Then for this submission, basically, yeah, once again, Miya twins. So unfortunately, oh, you also have wait, what are you missing here? You have Miya twins. Oh yeah, you're missing Kenma SP. So once again, I would prefer playing Kenma SP over Miya twins. Same thing here as well. And also I did read your comment on that you rather prefer having more quick attack increase, but like I said, the value of SP Kuro is actually gonna bring more stats buff to the team because of the deployment bond with Suki, even though he's not a quick attack speciality. So there's actually no need for you to play the UR version Kuro here. And also obviously SP Kenma over Asumia once you do have the Kuro SP. Then for this one, I mean, Miya Twins is one thing, and then also Kita. Kita's not. I mean, he's a very good character, but if we're talking about the best quick spiking team, then obviously any SSR is not going to fit. This one is very interesting. You do have Hoshiyumi, but once again, I would prefer Kenma SP. Hoshiyumi does have a very good reflex rate, which on face value will synergize very well with Hinata SP. However, Hoshiyumi is only able to have a high reflex himself, whereas Kenma SP is able to boost the reflex for your whole team. So that's kind of why Kenma SP is still going to be better. Similar kind of thing here. You have Aone who have very good reflex stats himself, although that's more for blocking, so it's not even receiving synergy with Hinata. What you are actually able to offer here is that he is able to have another surfing ability. So you do have 4 surfs in a row, which is very nice. And also when Aone is subbed out, he would actually get a buff. Now, two comments I will make with this. First of all, once again, Kenma SP is actually going to be better than Aone because of the synergy with higher reflex for your whole team. Second thing is that if you are going to swap out SP Aone, which feels like that's, I mean, you didn't say in terms of the liberal swap. I don't think you mentioned that here. No, as Subsuki and only. Okay, yeah. You are planning to sub out the mid blocker. So if you are gonna sub out the mid blocker, yes, Ione would be able to buff the team. However, the buff you get scales with how many stacks of his own buff he's able to obtain. So if you actually have him in this position, so one rotation away from being subbed out, he wouldn't actually be able to fully build up his buff, and therefore you are kind of weakening how much buff your whole team gets. So I will actually swap the position of Aone and also Kageyama in this particular instance as well. Then for this submission, once again, usage of Kita and also Miya twins. Then this one, you have all of the characters in the right, sorry, all of the correct characters. It's just kind of the matter of rotation. There's no value of Kema SP in the serving position, and also you have also Miya in kind of the fifth rotation serve, which once again that basically means he wouldn't actually even be serving, even though he has obviously a much better serving skill than other characters. You also have Crow at the back, and then Suki up front, which I mean to be honest that can work, but once again, Kuro have a surfing ability, so you shouldn't really have Kuro at the back and Suki up front in this particular instance as well. I actually feel like you probably made a mistake because you did actually say for rotation you just put Kageyama and Osmo for the surf skill. So obviously if you actually put Osmo Miya for the surf skill, he should be in one of the surfing positions, right? Or at least one of the surfing rotation. So you probably meant what you want to do. You just didn't actually done that correctly in the screenshot, unfortunately. Um, then for this one, first of all, having the usage of Kita is not great. Second thing, you don't have Kagoyama Yua, so that basically means you are going for a team with Asumia. However, like I said, a lot of members of the team actually rely on Crypt, particularly Hinata SP, Suki SP, Komori also increased reflex rate, and same thing with Sakusa as well. So this is not the best synergy within your team. Then for this one, I mean, you have 2 SSR characters, so unfortunately, that's not gonna cut it in terms of the best, quick sparking team. It can still be a very good team for free to plays, but in terms of we're talking about the best, then obviously it wouldn't involve 2 SSR characters. Then for this one, similar kind of thing, you have both members of the Miya twins. I would much rather have Kema SP for that increase of your reflex. And then Crossout. Okay, so first of all, a huge shout out to Crossout. He doesn't actually have it here, but basically, if I click on this link, it opens up a whole PDF. It has like 10 pages of detailed information talking about every single rotation, the reason why he picked everyone, and even go as far as kind of the attacking rotation as well. So for example, who would be spiking first and then second, etc. So massive shout out to you, Crossout. I don't know whether you keep off your guides somewhere, but they could definitely be very useful for the community. And I'm also intrigued to see what other guides you have made as well. But purely for this one, as much as I appreciate how much effort you put in, the team I personally feel is lacking slightly. One of the biggest thing I noticed is that you mentioned you would be swapping out Kageyama Yua for Nishinoya. And personally, I don't think that's a good idea. You talk about, for example, a lot of the other character can work without the crit buff from Kageyama Yua. Yes, whilst that's correct, Kageyama Yua doesn't just provide crit rate, he also provides lots of other buffs, when he does his serve, so he does actually offer a lot of value. And then furthermore, when you have the deployment bomb with Hinata SP, his crit is not just going to spikes but also can be used for your receives, and that basically means you will be increasing the likelihood of you getting a critical receipt. And then, like I said earlier, you will then be able to kick off a whole chain reaction. Hinata SP then basically crit on his spike, then that will increase Suki SP, and then that will allow your initial to reduce the cooldown, etc. So it's actually quite crucial that Kageyama you stay on the field for as long as possible. Obviously, if you are gonna have him subbed out for Nishinoya, that's still viable, right? You can definitely set Nishinoya to swap out the setter, but I definitely wouldn't go through a whole match where vast majority of the time he will be in the sub position. So that's gonna be my thoughts on this team. Then this is going to be the last submission. Once again, you have the Miya twins, which, uh, yeah, I would prefer Kema SP better than his. I already explained the reason multiple times. So unfortunately, this is not going to win it either. So that's all of the submissions. Once again, thank you everyone for submitting. But after reviewing all of this, the winner that I have decided is going to be Charlotte. Like I said, this team is very, very similar to mine. The only adjustment I would definitely make the adjustment of swapping the position of Kuro and Suki SP. Potentially also swap Asumu Miya to Ultima Miya, but that's more of a personal preference because I would like to play it safe. But I can see the reason why you put Asumu Miya here as well. You've done a very good explanation. I know you also said about, for example, liberal swap out on Asumu Miya as well, so you did consider where initial oil will come into play as well, so very good. But yeah, congratulations to you, and I will be reaching out for some of your details in order to pass it to the dev. Now, of the other event, which is club contest, here's basically all of the result. I have already recorded down all of the scores, how many dupes you guys have, the adjustment I'll be making, and also the final score. And the winner for week 1 is going to be Junie. Okay, so I'll be reaching out to you, both you and also Charlotte, in terms of details on your server and also user IDs, because I need to provide those to Garena in order for them to actually provide you the rewards. Okay, so I'll be reaching out to you guys shortly. So once again, congratulations to both of you guys. And as for others, thank you very much for participating. Remember, there are still going to be more giveaway events. The week 2 events are currently on right now, as well as all of the other permanent, well, not permanent, but the longer duration events, which you guys still have another 3 weeks to submit for. Okay, so hopefully you guys can continue to participate and also enjoy yourself during this event.